Parshat Beshalach tells us about the Manna, the miraculous bread from heaven that God provided to the Jewish people throughout their sojourn in the wilderness. And when Hashem tells Moshe about it, he mentions that he will be providing bread for the Jewish people. Laman anasenu hayalech betorati imlo. The point of giving it to them is to test them. I want to test them, whether they will walk in my Torah or not, whether they will follow my Torah. What has the manna got to do with a test in belief and trust in Hashem? The Torah goes on to say that Moshe was to instruct the Jewish people that the manna would fall every single day, but they were only to collect enough for that day, and they were not to leave over anything for the next day, because the next day the manna would fall. And indeed it happened that he gave them this instruction, and there were people who left it over. They left over the manna. They didn't believe that it would come tomorrow. And when tomorrow came, the manna that they left over became wormy and moldy, and it rotted away. This was the test. Would they trust in Hashem that He would give them food the next day? And that's very, very difficult. How can you be convinced that just because you have food today, you're going to have food tomorrow? The Talmud has a saying, Eino dome mish yesh lo pat besalo, lemisha ein lo pat besalo. You cannot compare a person who has bread in his basket to somebody who doesn't have bread in his basket. If I know that I have food to eat tomorrow, I'm in a much better psychological space. But if I don't have food for tomorrow, I'm in a terrible psychological space. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And this was the manna. Would Hashem give us food the next day or not? Throughout the history of the Jewish people, they very often lived in circumstances of terrible poverty. In Eastern Europe, before World War II and even before World War I, there was incredible poverty in Poland, Lithuania, and other parts of Eastern Europe and Russia. People subsisted. People were living hand to mouth. And they didn't know what tomorrow would bring. And yet they were people of incredible faith and trust in Hashem, such that we don't really see today. Today the Jewish people, and thank God for this, live in a state of affluence. It's a generalization. But we live in Western countries, and Western man is much more affluent than he's ever been. There's supermarkets, there's refrigeration. People can have food that will last for weeks, for months, and you're not worried about tomorrow. And when we're not worried about tomorrow, we don't put our trust in Hashem as much as we should. And this was the test of the manna. I'm giving you food today, says Hashem, but I promise you I'll give you food tomorrow. But you have to trust in me. Don't leave it overnight. This is a test that's still applicable to us today, and if not more so, because we have affluence. We have to realize that our entire parnasa, our livelihood comes from Hashem. It could be taken away in a moment. And we have to live in that trust that He will provide for us. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.